Captain Jake Morrison stood at the bridge window of the starship New Horizon, watching the stars stretch into lines as they traveled faster than light. His hands gripped the metal rail tighter than usual. In all his 20 years serving in Earth's Space Command, he had never carried such an important mission. "Captain, we're getting the transmission again," said Communications Officer Ryan Mitchell from his station. The young man's voice carried a mix of excitement and worry. Jake nodded and walked to the center of the bridge. Put it on the main screen. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a creature that still made Jake's stomach turn even after seeing it dozens of times. The alien had blue-gray skin stretched tight over a skull, twice the size of a human head. Its 3 eyes blinked in sequence, and when it spoke, rows of needle-sharp teeth became visible. "Greetings, representatives of the species known as humans," the alien said in perfect English, though its voice sounded like metal scraping against stone. "I am Ambassador Krell of the Galactic Confederation of Worlds. Your presence at the Supremacy Games has been approved by the High Council." Jake had memorized every word of this message, but it still sent chills down his spine. The Galactic Confederation ruled over thousands of worlds and hundreds of different alien species. For 300 years, humans had known about alien life, but contact had been limited to simple trade agreements and cautious diplomatic exchanges. This invitation was something completely different. "The games occur once every 1,000 of your Earth years," the message continued. "They determine which civilization holds the position of honor and leadership among all galactic peoples. Your species has been granted the right to participate, though we expect your performance to be ... educational." The way Krell said educational made it clear what the aliens thought of humanity's chances. Dr. Lisa Carter stepped up beside Jake as the message ended. She was Earth's best expert on alien cultures and had spent months preparing for this mission. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her brown eyes showed the same worry that Jake felt. "They're not taking us seriously," she said quietly. "Every species that's ever participated in these games was already part of the Confederation. We're the first outsiders they've ever invited." "Maybe that gives us an advantage," Jake replied, though he didn't sound convinced. Lisa shook her head. "I've studied the records they share with us. The games aren't just about winning glory. The victorious civilization gets access to something called the Archive, ancient technology from the first galactic empire. We're talking about faster-than-light travel that makes our current ships look like bicycles, energy systems that could power entire solar systems, and weapons that could crack planets in half." Jake felt the weight of responsibility settle even heavier on his shoulders. Earth's government had chosen 12 of their best people for this mission. Each one was an expert in their field: military tactics, engineering, medicine, physics, and more. But none of them had ever faced anything like what waited for them. "Captain," called out Navigation Officer Elena Brooks from her station, "we're approaching the coordinates. You need to see this." Jake and Lisa moved to the navigation console, and Elena pointed at her screen. What they saw made both of them take a step back. Floating in space ahead of them was a structure so massive it defied understanding. It looked like someone had taken a dozen moons and connected them with bridges and tunnels of gleaming metal. Ships moved between the connected spheres like insects around a hive, but these ships were each the size of Earth's largest space stations. "The game station," Lisa whispered. It's bigger than anything we imagine." Jake activated the ship's intercom. "All hands, this is the captain. We've reached our destination. Report to your stations and prepare for docking procedures." Throughout the ship, the other members of Earth's team were getting their first look at what they were up against. In the engineering section, Kate Sullivan stared at the readings from her instruments and realized that the energy output from the alien station was greater than Earth's sun. In the medical bay, Dr. Claire Thompson was reviewing alien biology files and wondering if her human medical training would be useful at all. The communications panel chimed, and Ryan looked up with surprise. "Captain, we're being hailed by the station. They're speaking in over 30 different languages." Put it through, Jake ordered. A new voice filled the bridge, this one sounding more human but still clearly alien. Welcome, humans, to the station of Eternal Games. I am Coordinator Vex, your guide during the preliminary period. Please follow the navigation beacon to Docking Bay 847. As they moved closer to the station, the true scale became even more overwhelming. The docking bay they were directed to was larger than most Earth cities. Hundreds of ships were already docked there, each one representing a different alien civilization. Look at those designs, Elena said, studying the alien vessels through. The viewports. Some of them don't even look like ships. That one over there looks like it's made of living crystal. Jake watched as their small human ship, which had seemed so advanced when they left Earth, moved past vessels that were clearly centuries or even millennia ahead of human technology. One ship appeared to be made entirely of light, while another looked like a massive flower with petals that slowly opened and closed. Remember, Lisa said to the crew, we're not here just to compete. We're here to represent all of humanity. Every human who ever looked up at the stars and wondered if we were alone is counting on us. As the New Horizon settled into its assigned docking space, Jake felt a mix of fear and determination. The aliens had invited humanity to participate. But from everything he had seen and heard, they expected humans to fail quickly and embarrassingly. The other species had technology that was hundreds or thousands of years more advanced. They had participated in these games before. They knew what to expect, but humans had something that Jake hoped the aliens hadn't counted on. They had survived ice ages and wars, plagues, and disasters. They had climbed out of caves and built cities, invented flight, and reached for the stars. They had never been the strongest or the fastest, but they had always found a way to survive and grow. The docking clamps engaged with a solid thunk that vibrated through the ship's hull. Jake straightened his uniform and looked around at his crew, 12 humans who carried the hopes of 8 billion more. Well, team, he said with a confidence he didn't entirely feel, let's go show the galaxy what humans can do. The airlock doors opened with a soft hiss, and Jake Morrison stepped into an alien world. The corridor beyond was enormous, with a ceiling that curved high above their heads. The walls glowed with a soft blue light that seemed to come from within. The metal itself. The air smelled strange, like ozone mixed with something sweet that made his nose tingle. Behind him, the rest of Earth's team followed in single file. Dr. Lisa Carter walked close to Jake's shoulder, her eyes wide as she took in every detail. The other 10 team members stayed alert, their hands never far from the energy weapons Earth's military had given them, though Jake wondered if their simple human technology would be any use here. The gravity feels lighter, whispered Marine Danny Parker. He was a big man with short brown hair and muscles built from years of training, but even he seemed small in this massive space. .7 Earth normal, confirmed Dr. Claire Thompson, checking the readings on her medical scanner. The air is breathable, but there are trace elements I don't recognize. They followed a glowing line on the floor that pulsed with gentle light, leading them deeper into the station. As they walked, they began to see other beings. Jake had studied alien species for months, but seeing them in person was completely different. A group of creatures that looked like walking crystals passed by without giving the humans a second glance. Their bodies were transparent blue, and light danced inside them as they moved. Behind them came something that might have been a plant or an animal. It was green and moved like flowing water, but Jake could see what looked like eyes scattered across its surface. Those are Rextari, Lisa said quietly, pointing at the crystal beings. Their entire civilization is based on shared consciousness through harmonic vibrations. And those green ones are Florians. They're actually a collection of smaller organisms that work together as one mind. Engineer Kate Sullivan was staring at the walls around them. The construction is incredible, she said. I can't even tell how these materials are joined together. It's like the entire station was grown rather than built. They reached a vast open area that reminded Jake of a sports stadium, but one designed by beings who thought on a completely different scale. The space was so large that clouds had formed near the ceiling. Thousands of aliens filled the area, their various forms creating a bizarre carnival of shapes and sizes. At the center of the space stood a raised platform where several beings waited. Jake recognized a blue-gray alien from the transmission, Ambassador Krell. Next to him stood a creature that was at least 12 feet tall, covered in what looked like black armor with red glowing joints. Its head was shaped like a triangle, and when it turned to look at the humans, Jake saw eyes that burned like small suns. "That's General Thax of the Kefmoran Empire," Lisa said, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're the current champions. They've won the games for the last 3 cycles." The third alien on the platform was unlike anything Jake had ever imagined. It looked like a collection of silver spheres that floated together in a roughly humanoid shape. The spheres constantly moved around each other, creating patterns that hurt to look at directly. "The Zephyrians," Lisa continued. "Each of those spheres is actually a separate individual, but they think and act as a collective. Some say they can predict the future." Ambassador Krell's voice echoed across the huge space without any visible amplification. "Beings of the Confederation, we gather once again for the Supremacy Games. This cycle brings us a new participant, the species known as humans." A sound rose from the crowd that Jake realized was laughter, though it came in forms he had never heard before. Some aliens made sounds like grinding metal, others whistled in complex harmonies, and a few produced noises that made his teeth ache. "The humans," General Thax said, his voice deep and rumbling like an earthquake, "have been granted participation as a learning experience. We expect their involvement to be brief but educational." More laughter from the crowd. Jake felt his team tense around him, but he kept his expression calm. He had led soldiers into combat before, and he knew that showing weakness now would doom them before the games even began. The floating Zephyrian collective spoke next, its voice sounding like wind chimes in a storm. "The probability of human success is 0.003%. This calculation factors in all known variables of their species' capabilities. However," Ambassador Krell continued, "the High Council has decreed that all sapient species deserve the opportunity to prove their worth. The humans will compete in all standard events." Jake stepped forward. He could feel thousands of alien eyes watching him, and the weight of representing all humanity pressed down on his shoulders. "We thank the Confederation for this opportunity," he said, his voice carrying clearly across the space. "Earth looks forward to the competition." His words caused another wave of sounds from the crowd, some that might have been amusement, others that sounded like dismissal. Over the next hour, Ambassador Krell explained the rules of the games. There will be 7 main events, each testing different aspects of a civilization's abilities: physical strength and endurance, technological innovation, strategic thinking, adaptation to new environments, individual skill, team cooperation, and finally, what Krell called the demonstration of worthiness, an event that changed with each cycle of the games. "Each species may field 12 representatives," Krell explained. "These same individuals must compete in all events. No substitutions are permitted once the games begin." Jake looked around at his team. 12 humans against the best that dozens of alien civilizations could offer. The odds seemed impossible. "The first event begins in 1 standard cycle," General Thax announced. "All teams will report to Arena 7 for the trial of strength. We will see which species truly deserves to lead the galaxy." As the crowd began to disperse, Jake gathered his team around him. The aliens were leaving in groups, many of them still making sounds that Jake was sure were laughter at humanity's expense. "They think we're a joke," Danny Parker said, his jaw tight with anger. "Good," Jake replied. "Let them underestimate us. Every military leader knows that overconfidence is the enemy's best weapon against itself." Dr. Carter nodded. "We need to use every advantage we can get. They're thinking of us as primitive newcomers, but that might make them careless. What did you think of their demonstration?" Kate Sullivan asked Lisa. Lisa frowned. They were showing off all that technology, all that power. They wanted us to be intimidated. But they also revealed information about their capabilities. We can use that. As they walked back toward their assigned quarters, Jake noticed something the aliens might have missed. His team wasn't walking with their heads down in defeat. Danny's anger was already shifting into determination. Kate was studying the alien technology around them with intense curiosity. Claire was taking medical readings of every species they passed. Ryan was listening to alien communications and learning their languages. The aliens saw 12 primitive humans who didn't belong here. Jake saw 12 people who had never backed down from a challenge in their lives. The games were about to begin. The first event was called the Trial of Strength, and Jake Morrison had never seen anything like Arena 7. The space was the size of a football stadium, but the floor kept changing. One moment it was solid metal, the next it became a swamp, filled with strange purple water. Mountains rose from the ground and then sank back down. The air itself seemed to shift between hot and cold every few minutes. The rules are simple, announced Coordinator Vex through speakers that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Each team must navigate the arena and reach the center platform. The environment will test your physical abilities, your technology, and your ability to adapt. The last 3 teams to reach the platform will be eliminated from the games. Jake looked around at the other teams preparing at the starting positions. The Kefmoran team stood like black armored statues, each one 8 feet tall and carrying weapons that hummed with energy. The Crystal Vextari were already changing color, their bodies shifting from blue to deep red as they prepared for battle. Them, a team of spider-like creatures with metal legs, was checking equipment that looked more advanced than anything Earth had ever built. Jake counted at least 15 different alien teams, each one representing a civilization that had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. "Remember the plan," Jake said to his team. "We're not trying to be first. We just need to not be last." Dr. Lisa Carter nodded, adjusting the backpack full of equipment that Kate Sullivan had modified during their preparation time. "The key is to watch what the others do and learn from their mistakes." The starting signal was a sound like thunder mixed with music. Immediately, the alien team spread out across the arena using methods that made Jake's jaw drop. The Kefmoran simply walked through obstacles as if they weren't there, their armor protecting them from everything the arena could throw at them. The spider creatures skittered across walls and ceilings, moving so fast they were just blurs. The Vextari did something even more impressive. They joined hands and became a single long chain. Then the crystal at one end began to glow. The entire team disappeared and reappeared 50 feet away, closer to the center platform. "Teleportation," whispered Amy Foster, the team's physicist. "They're using quantum displacement." "Well, we can't do that," said Marine Danny Parker, "so we better start moving." The human team began to make their way across the arena, but within minutes they were falling behind, where the aliens used advanced technology or natural abilities. The humans had to rely on basic problem solving and teamwork. When they reached a river of liquid that burned like acid, the Kefmoran simply walked across the bottom, their armor protecting them. The spider creatures built a bridge from materials that appeared out of thin air. The humans had to find a different way. "There," pointed Elena Brooks, the team's pilot. "Those rocks form a path, but they're too far apart to jump." Kate Sullivan was already pulling rope from her pack. "We'll make a zip-line system." "Danny, you're strong enough to throw this rope to that rock outcropping." It took them 20 minutes to set up their crossing system, and by the time they all made it across, most of the alien teams were far ahead. But Jake noticed something interesting. While the aliens were faster, they were also making mistakes. Several teams had gotten stuck in traps because they relied too much on their technology. The arena shifted again, and suddenly they were facing a maze of walls that kept moving. The Zephyrian collective tried to phase through the walls, but got separated when the maze shifted. Two of their sphere beings ended up trapped in different sections. "This is our chance," Jake said. "Everyone stay together. We'll solve this the old-fashioned way." While the aliens tried to use their advanced abilities to overcome the maze, the humans did something simpler. Danny Parker climbed onto Sam Bennett's shoulders, then onto Ryan Mitchell's shoulders, creating a human ladder. From the top, Danny could see over the maze walls. "Left, then right, then straight ahead," Danny called down. "I can see the path." It wasn't elegant, and it wasn't high-tech, but it worked. The human team moved through the maze while several alien teams struggled with their malfunctioning equipment or got lost when their advanced sensors were confused by the changing walls. Next obstacle was a pit filled with floating platforms. The platforms were too far apart for humans to jump, but Jake noticed something the aliens had missed. The platforms moved in a pattern. "It's like a dance," said Claire Thompson. Every 30 seconds, they line up in a straight path across the pit. The humans waited for the right moment, then ran across in single file. 3 alien teams saw what they were doing and tried to copy them, but they had already wasted time trying to use flying devices or teleportation that didn't work properly in the arena scrambled. Energy fields dot as they got closer to the center. Platform, Jake could see they weren't in last place anymore. The Florians were stuck in a section where the ground kept turning into quicksand. Their flowing, plant-like bodies couldn't get solid footing. A team of bird-like aliens was trapped in an area where the air was too thick for their wings to work. "We might actually make it," Elena said, breathing hard as they climbed over a hill that kept trying to turn into a slope of loose rocks. But the final challenge was the hardest. Yet, between them and the center platform was a wide gap with nothing but empty air. The successful teams that had already reached the platform had used various methods: teleportation, flying, or energy bridges. The humans had none of those options. "There has to be a way," Lisa said, studying the gap. "Every challenge in the arena has been solvable without advanced technology. We just have to think like humans." Amy Foster was looking up at the ceiling of the arena. "The gravity feels different here, lighter, and look at those energy conduits running along the ceiling." Kate Sullivan followed her gaze. "If we could get up there, we could swing across using those conduits like monkey bars." "But how do we get up there?" Danny asked. Jake smiled. "The same way we got over the maze walls. We worked together." It took all 12 team members working in coordination. They formed a human pyramid with the strongest members at the bottom and the lightest at the top. Elena, who was the smallest and most agile, climbed to the very top and grabbed one of the energy conduits. The conduit held her weight. She swung across hand over hand, then lowered a rope to the other side. One by one, the team climbed up and swung across the gap. They weren't first to reach the platform. That honor went to the Kef Morin team. But they weren't last either. As Jake pulled the final team member up onto the platform, he looked back to see 4 alien teams still struggling with the obstacles they had overcome. "Impossible," said General Thax, his burning eyes fixed on the humans. "Your species has no advanced capabilities. How did you succeed where others failed?" Jake met the alien's gaze steadily. "We worked together. We thought creatively. And we never gave up." For the first time since the games began, the aliens weren't laughing at the humans anymore. 3 days had passed since the trial of strength, and everything had changed. The human team was no longer just an amusing curiosity. They had placed 6 out of the remaining 12 teams, and the entire station was talking about them. Jake Morrison walked through the corridors of the game station and noticed the difference immediately. Where before aliens had ignored the humans or looked at them with amusement, now they watched with something that looked like concern. Some even stepped aside to let the humans pass. "I don't like this attention," said Danny Parker as they headed toward the briefing for the next event. The big Marine kept his hand near his weapon, a habit that had served him well in combat zones back on Earth. Dr. Lisa Carter was studying her tablet, reviewing intelligence they had gathered on the other teams. "The attention is the least of our problems," I've been monitoring alien communications, and there's chatter about changing the rules. What kind of changes? Jake asked. The kind that would make it harder for species without advanced technology to compete, Lisa replied. They're calling it ensuring competitive balance, but it's really about stopping us. They entered the briefing amphitheater and took their seats. Jake noticed that the humans were no longer sitting in the back section reserved for observers. They had been moved to the competitors' area, which should have felt like progress. Instead, it felt like being marked for elimination. Ambassador Krell took the platform, his 3 eyes scanning the remaining teams. The second event is the trial of innovation. Each team will be given a problem to solve using only materials provided in the testing chamber. You will have 4 standard hours to create a solution. The problems were displayed on screens around the amphitheater. Each team would face a different challenge, but all were designed to test technological creativity. Jake read their assignment and felt his heart sink. Build a device capable of generating a stable energy field that can protect against radiation, electromagnetic interference, and physical projectiles. The device must be portable and function for at least 1 standard hour. Kate Sullivan whistled softly. They want us to build a personal shield generator in 4 hours using whatever junk they give us. Look at what the other teams got, Amy Foster said, pointing at the other screens. The Kefmoran had to build a faster-than-light communication device. The Vextari needed to create a matter transporter. Every challenge was designed around technology that was far beyond human capabilities. This is deliberate, Lisa said quietly. They designed challenges that play to each species. Strengths except for us. Jake stood up as the teams were dismissed to their testing chambers. Then we'll have to do what humans do best. We'll improvise. The testing chamber was a large white room filled with tables covered in components and materials. Jake looked at the collection of alien technology and realized he didn't recognize half of it. There were crystals that glowed with internal light, metal strips that bent in impossible ways, and devices that hummed with energy he couldn't identify. Okay, team, Jake said. What do we actually know how to build? Not a force field generator. Kate said bluntly. This stuff is centuries ahead of our technology. Ryan Mitchell was examining one of the glowing crystals. But maybe we don't need to build what they expect. The requirement is to protect against radiation, electromagnetic interference, and physical projectiles. It doesn't say we have to use a force field. What are you thinking? Jake asked. Ryan held up the crystal. These things seem to absorb energy. And look at this metal. It's incredibly dense but still flexible. What if we don't build a generator? What if we build armor? Amy Foster's eyes lit up. Reactive armor. Instead of projecting a field, we create a suit that responds to different types of attacks. For the next 4 hours, the human team worked with an intensity that reminded Jake of emergency repairs on a damaged spacecraft. They had no instruction manuals for the alien materials, so they experimented, they tested. They failed, and they tried again. Kate discovered that combining 2 different crystals created a reaction that neutralized electromagnetic fields. Claire found that one of the strange metals could be shaped to deflect projectiles while remaining lightweight. Sam figured out how to power the whole system using what looked like a simple battery but generated more energy than a nuclear reactor. Meanwhile, through the chamber's observation windows, they could see other teams working. The Kefmoran were building something that looked like a small spacecraft engine. The Vextari had created a device that made the air around it shimmer and bend. Time remaining, 30 minutes, announced the chamber's voice system. It's not going to be pretty, Kate said, looking at their creation. It looked like a vest made of metal plates and glowing crystals with wires connecting various components. Pretty doesn't matter if it works, Jake replied. Let's test it. Danny volunteered to wear the prototype. They activated it, and immediately, the crystals began to glow brighter. When Amy fired a low-power energy pulse at him, the vest absorbed it completely. When they threw a metal ball at his chest, The armor plate shifted and deflected it harmlessly. "It works," Claire said, amazement in her voice. "It actually works." The testing period ended, and all teams were brought to a demonstration arena. One by one, each team would show their solution while the others attacked it with various weapons. Provided by the game organizers, the Kefmoran went first. Their force field generator created a perfect sphere of energy around their volunteer. Every weapon that hit it was stopped completely. The crowd of alien spectators made sounds of approval. The Vextari were next. Their device created a field that made projectiles pass through their volunteer as if he wasn't there. Even more impressive sounds from the crowd. When it was humanity's turn, Jake could hear what sounded like alien laughter from the spectator. Areas. Danny walked to the center of the arena wearing their makeshift armor, and Jake had to admit it looked primitive compared to the sleek alien devices. The first attack was a radiation beam. The crystals in Danny's armor glowed brighter, and the radiation readings on the monitoring equipment dropped to 0. The second attack was an electromagnetic pulse designed to shut down electronic systems. The armor's crystals shifted color, and all the components kept working normally. The third attack was a barrage of physical projectiles. Metal spikes fired from different angles. The armor plates moved and shifted, deflecting each spike away from Danny's body. "Defense successful," announced Coordinator Vex, and Jake could hear surprise in the alien's voice. But the real shock came when the test results were displayed. The human armor hadn't just worked. It had performed better than half of the alien solutions. While the other devices created perfect protection, they also consumed enormous amounts of energy. The human armor was crude, but it was efficient. "Impossible," General Thax said from the judge's platform. "Humans do not possess the knowledge to create such technology." "We don't," Jake replied. "But we know how to solve problems with whatever tools we have." As they left the arena, Jake noticed that the aliens weren't just watching them anymore. They were studying them. And for the first time since arriving at the station, he realized that some of the alien species were beginning to see humanity as a real threat. That night, as Jake reviewed the day's events, Ryan Mitchell burst into their quarters with news that made Jake's blood run cold. "Captain, I've been monitoring communications. There's going to be an emergency meeting of the High Council tonight. They're discussing whether to change the rules mid-competition. The cost of their success was becoming clear. The aliens had invited humanity as entertainment, expecting them to fail quickly and quietly. Instead, the humans were proving that advanced technology wasn't everything. And that was apparently the last thing the galactic powers wanted the rest of the universe to see. The emergency meeting of the High Council had lasted all night, and Jake Morrison could see the results written on Ambassador Krell's face when the aliens announced the final event. The three-eyed diplomat's expression was harder than usual, and his voice carried an edge that hadn't been there before. Due to the unprecedented nature of this competition cycle, Krell announced to the assembled teams, the High Council has decided to modify the final event. Jake felt his team tense around him. After 5 events, only 4 teams remained. The humans had somehow survived every challenge, placing 3rd overall behind the Kefmoran Empire and the Vextari Collective. The 4th team was the Zephyrians, whose ability to predict probability had kept them in the competition despite several near eliminations. "The final event will be a direct contest," Krell continued. "Each team will face the others in a series of one-on-one competitions. The winning team of each match advances. The losing team is eliminated." Dr. Lisa Carter leaned close to Jake. "This isn't how the games are supposed to work," she whispered. "I studied the historical records. The final event has always been a puzzle or challenge that all teams attempt together. They're changing the rules because we're still here," Jake replied quietly. "They want to make sure we face the Kefmoran directly." General Thax stepped forward, his black armor gleaming under the arena lights. "The format will be simple. Each team chooses one representative for individual combat. Then the remaining 11 members compete in a group tactical scenario. The team that wins both sections claims victory. The alien generals, burning eyes fixed on Jake. The first match will be between the humans and the Kefmoran Empire. Jake had expected this. Throughout the games, it had become clear that the Kefmoran saw humanity as an insult to the natural order. They were the current champions, the strongest military force in the galaxy, and they couldn't accept that a primitive species was still competing alongside them. "We need to choose our fighter," Jake said to his team, as they were given an hour to prepare. "And we need to figure out what they mean by tactical scenario. I'll fight their champion," Danny Parker said immediately. The Marine had been itching for a direct confrontation since the games began. "No," said Kate Sullivan. "Look at General Fax. He's 8 feet tall and wearing armor that probably weighs more than you do. Brute force won't work. Then what will?" Claire Thompson asked. Amy Foster was studying her tablet, reviewing everything they had learned about Kefmoran physiology. Their armor is powered by internal energy cells, and their species has enhanced strength but slower reflexes than humans. "If we could find a way to exploit that." "I'll do it," said Sam Bennett. The pilot was smaller than Danny, but he was faster and had trained in zero-gravity combat techniques that might give him an edge. Jake nodded. "Sam fights. The rest of us prepare for whatever tactical scenario they throw at us." An hour later, they stood in the largest arena the station had to offer. Thousands of aliens filled the spectator areas, and Jake could feel the weight of their attention. This wasn't just about the games anymore. This was about whether humanity deserved a place among the galactic powers. The individual combat would take place first. Sam walked to the center of the arena, looking tiny compared to the Kefmoran champion who emerged from the opposing team. The alien warrior was even larger than General Thax, with armor that sparked with energy and weapons built into its gauntlets. "The combat will continue until one participant yields or is unable to continue," Coordinator Vex announced. "Standard weapons are permitted." Sam drew his energy pistol, a weapon that had seemed advanced when they left Earth, but now looked like a toy compared to alien technology. The Kefmoran champion activated weapons in both hands that glowed with enough energy to cut through metal. Fight began with the alien charging forward, confident that his superior size and technology would end the match quickly. Sam did exactly what Jake had hoped he would do. He used his speed and smaller size to stay out of reach. The arena floor was flat metal, but Sam treated it like the deck of a spacecraft in zero gravity. He rolled, jumped, and slid around the larger opponent, never staying in one place long enough for the alien's weapons to target him effectively. The Kefmoran champion grew frustrated and began swinging wildly. Its energy weapons were powerful, but they were also heavy and slow. Sam waited for his moment, and when the alien overextended on a particularly violent swing, the human pilot struck. But instead of attacking with his weapon, Sam did something the alien wasn't expecting. He grabbed one of the power cables visible on the outside of the Kefmoran S armor and yanked it loose. Sparks flew from the alien's suit, and one arm of its armor went dead. The creature roared in surprise and anger, but now it was fighting with only one working weapon. Sam had evened the odds. The fight continued for another 10 minutes, with Sam systematically disabling pieces of his opponent's armor until the massive alien was forced to yield. The arena fell silent as the Kefmoran champion raised its remaining functional hand in surrender. "Individual combat goes to the humans," Coordinator Vex announced. And Jake could hear shock in the alien's voice, but the real test was still coming. The tactical scenario was revealed as a complex 3-dimensional battlefield with multiple objectives. Each team had to capture and hold strategic points while preventing their opponents from doing the same. The Kefmoran team took the field. Like the military force they were, they moved in perfect formation, their remaining 11 members working with the precision of a machine. They were bigger, stronger, and better equipped than the humans. Jake looked at his team and saw something the aliens had missed. Where the Kefmoran moved like soldiers following orders, The humans moved like a family that had been through everything together. "Remember," Jake said as they took their positions, "we don't have to beat them at their own game. We just have to beat them at ours." The tactical battle began with the Kefmoran doing exactly what Jake had expected. They used their superior firepower to take the central high ground and began systematically capturing objectives through brute force, but the humans scattered, using speed and coordination to stay mobile. When the aliens focused on one objective, the humans would pop up somewhere else. They used the environment to their advantage, turning obstacles into cover and finding paths through the battlefield that the larger aliens couldn't follow. The turning point came when Ryan Mitchell and Elena Brooks managed to get behind the Kefmoran formation while the aliens were focused on Danny Parker's team creating a distraction. The two humans disabled the alien communication equipment, breaking the perfect coordination that was the Kefmoran's greatest strength. Suddenly, the alien team was fighting as individuals instead of a unit. They still had superior weapons and armor, but they had lost the teamwork that made them unstoppable. One by one, the humans captured objectives while the confused Kefmoran team struggled to reorganize. When the final timer ran out, humanity controlled 6 of the 9 strategic points. "Victory to the human team," Coordinator Vex announced. And this time Jake could hear something that might have been respect in the alien's voice as they left the arena. Jake saw General Thax removing his helmet. The alien's face was harder to read than the human's, but Jake thought he saw something that might have been approval in those burning eyes. "You fight with honor," the general said simply. "Your species may be worthy of respect after all." But Jake knew their victory had come with a price. They had just eliminated the current champions, the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Every remaining alien civilization would now see humanity not as amusing newcomers, but as a genuine threat to the established order. The final match would be against the Vextari Collective, and Jake had a feeling that the crystal beings had been watching very carefully, learning from the Kefmoran's mistakes. The final arena was different from all the others. Instead of metal walls and artificial environments, this space felt ancient. The floor was made of stone that seemed to pulse with its own light, and symbols covered every surface in languages that were older than any civilization currently competing in the games. Jake Morrison stood with his team at one end of the arena, facing the Vextari Collective at the other end. The crystal beings were no longer the cheerful blue color they had been when the game started. Now they glowed with a deep red light that made the air around them shimmer with heat. "This is the arena of First Truth," announced Coordinator Vex, his voice echoing strangely in the ancient space. Here, the founders of the First Galactic Empire tested those who would lead. The challenge is simple in concept but difficult in execution. Ambassador Krell stepped forward, his 3 eyes reflecting the pulsing light from the stone floor. Each team will face a test that reveals their species' true nature. The collective will judge which team demonstrates the qualities needed to guide the galaxy forward. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't going to be about tactics or technology. This was going to be about something deeper. "The test begins now," Krell announced, and suddenly the arena filled with light. When Jake's vision cleared, he found himself standing in what looked like Earth's Mission Control Center during humanity's first Mars landing. But something was wrong. Warning lights were flashing, and people in white coats were running between computer stations with expressions of panic. "Captain," said a voice he recognized as his own, but younger. Jake turned and saw himself as he had been 20 years ago, wearing the uniform of a lieutenant in Earth space program. "The colony ship is in trouble," the younger Jake continued. "Engine failure during landing. They're going to crash, and we can't get a rescue mission to them for 6 months." Jake realized what was happening. This was a memory, but not quite. The arena was showing him a moment from Earth's history and asking him to relive it, but with the knowledge he had now dot around him, his team was experiencing their own visions. He could see Dr. Lisa Carter arguing with someone who looked like her younger self. Danny Parker was facing what appeared to be a battlefield from some past conflict. What are our options? Jake asked his younger self. We can send an unmanned supply drop, but the targeting system isn't accurate enough. There's a 60% chance it will miss the landing zone completely. Or we can wait and send a proper rescue mission that will definitely reach them, but not for 6 months. Jake remembered this day. In the original timeline, they had waited for the proper rescue mission. All 43 colonists had died when their life support systems failed after 4 months. There's a third option, Jake said. What if we modify the supply drop? Instead of trying to land it precisely, what if we design it to work even if it's off target? His younger self looked confused. How would that work? Split the supplies into multiple smaller drops. Spread them over a wider area. Include beacons so the colonists can find them. It's not perfect, but it gives them a chance. The scene around Jake shifted, showing the results of his decision. The multiple supply drops worked. Some missed, but enough reached the colonists to keep them alive until the rescue mission arrived. All 43 people survived. As the vision faded, Jake found himself back in the arena of First Truth. His team was gathering around him, each one looking shaken by whatever they had experienced. What did you see? Lisa asked. A choice I made 20 years ago, Jake replied, but with a different outcome. Across the arena, the Vextari Collective was glowing brighter than ever. Their crystal bodies were shifting through colors Jake had never seen before, and the air around them was filled with harmonic sounds that made his teeth ache. The humans have completed their tests, Coordinator Vex announced. Now we will see the results. The ancient symbols on the walls began to glow, and images appeared in the air above the arena. Jake saw scenes from each of his team members' visions. Lisa arguing for funding for a research project that would later save millions of lives. Danny choosing to risk his own life to evacuate civilians from a disaster zone. Kate redesigning a spacecraft to be safer rather than faster. Each vision showed the same thing. Humans making choices that prioritize the welfare of others over personal gain or easy solutions. Then the arena showed the Vextari test. The crystal beings were reliving moments from their species' history, but these scenes were different. Jake saw the Vextari choosing to destroy a species that threatened their expansion. He saw them deciding to keep advanced medical technology to themselves rather than share it with allied civilizations, where the human visions showed sacrifice and cooperation. The Vextari visions showed power and control. The testing is complete, announced a new voice, one that seemed to come from the arena itself. The ancient protocols have been followed. The choice is clear. The symbols on the walls flared with brilliant light, and words appeared in the air, in every language spoken by the assembled civilizations. Leadership requires sacrifice. Wisdom requires humility. Strength requires restraint. The species known as humans demonstrates these qualities. The Vextari Collective demonstrates power without purpose. The arena fell silent. Jake could hardly believe what he was hearing. Humanity had won the supremacy games, but the celebration he had expected didn't come. Instead, he felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. With victory comes obligation, the ancient voice continued. The winning species gains access to the archive of the First Empire, but they also accept the burden of leadership. They must guide, protect, and serve all civilizations in the galaxy. Ambassador Krell approached the human team, his expression unreadable. Congratulations, he said, though his voice carried no joy. You have achieved something unprecedented. A species less than 300 years into space travel has claimed leadership of the galaxy. General Thax was there too, having removed his helmet entirely. Your victory was earned through honor, the Kefmoran said. My people will support your leadership. Over the following hours, Jake learned what humanity had truly won. The archive contained technology that could transform human civilization overnight, faster than light travel that made their current ships look like canoes, energy systems that could power entire star systems, medical advances that could extend human life for centuries. But with that technology came responsibility for over 10,000 civilizations spread across the galaxy. Species that had been rivals for millennia would now look to humanity for guidance. Ancient conflicts would require human mediation. Decisions that could affect trillions of lives would rest in human hands. As the human team prepared to return to Earth with news of their victory, Jake stood once more at the observation window of their ship. The alien station was falling behind them, but ahead lay challenges that made the games look simple. "Do you think we're ready for this?" Lisa asked, joining him at the window. Jake thought about the visions in the arena of First Truth, about the choices his species had made throughout their history. Humans had never been the strongest or the smartest, but they had always found ways to help each other survive and grow. "I don't know if we're ready," he said finally, "but I know we'll try to do what's right, and maybe that's enough." The stars ahead seemed brighter now, full of possibilities and responsibilities. Humanity had won everything they had dreamed of. But Jake was beginning to understand what the ancient arena had tried to teach them. The winner really did take it all, including the weight of using that victory wisely.